right, welcome to the Return2Play Podcast, everyone. I'm here with Ben Velazquez, a well-renowned strength and conditioning coach and performance rehabilitation and concussion expert. Here to chat with him a little bit today about some of his background and how he came to find St. Pete Cali and our Return2Play program, and some of how he might be able to fit into the overall ecosystem that is Return2Play.
Hi, and thanks for having me, and thanks for putting me on the floor so I have to sit up straight.
Yeah, I'm going to force your posture improvement a little bit.
Exactly. I have to prove it. How'd I find you guys? I found you guys through social media because we moved down here from New York, my family and I, for just a little over a year. And so I was looking for a couple of facilities that I'd like to partner up my services with, specifically that I could refer some of my athletes to at certain stages that I was working with them, and felt that we shared a similar philosophy. And when I looked at what you guys were doing here and the Return2Play, it correlated with what I was looking for. So we chatted, and it's so far it's been great. I mean, what you guys are doing is fantastic. Especially for adults.
We're trying to get adults back out to the playground and enjoy some of these things we used to take for granted maybe as kids, but looking back, a lot of those movements that we inherently did out on the playground were very good for our bodies, whether it's just hanging from monkey bars, jumping off of stuff, climbing things, and having to utilize these cross-sling systems that we have, where our day-to-day as we've grown into adulthood has usually gotten very bilateral, very sedentary, very inactivating as far as all those systems that really keep our body in balance. So we kind of realized what was happening is I was training clients in a way that was very body weight forward, and that's where the calisthenics model sort of came into my viewpoint as something that was needed. I just realized people just didn't know how to move their bodies, and they kept getting hurt because they're going into the gym and adding external load on top of this movement dysfunction that they already had from years of just not paying attention to it. Typical PE in elementary school and all doesn't really teach you how to move as much as it does just encourages just randomness. And if you're a kid who goes to the monkey bars, you get the benefit of that. But if you're the kid who just kind of draws chalk on the courtyard, then you don't really get as much of that. But none of us get that as we're adults. By the time you're 20, none of us are hardly doing any of that anymore.
Yeah.
So we wanted to help change the tide and get people back out doing those more awkward movements throughout those playground years. And calisthenics was very underrepresented in the fitness world. So we wanted to step in and incorporate the corrective exercise as well. And that's where the Return2Play program is really stemmed from. And finding other practitioners like yourself to add other pieces of expertise to it, I think is really going to be what helps us set this program apart from what really hasn't existed much at all to this point.
Yeah. Well, what I really like about the program, especially for adults, is, as I mentioned before, there's different components that you guys have here at the facility that I could utilize, class components, the way that you set up the facility, that are great to integrate certain parts of the athletes, whether it be his or her rehabilitation or just their own training, just to add in stuff that I really, really like. I like it because you're addressing what is my ultimate goal, and that's to help them to move better in space, to move better in 360 degrees, whether they're coming back from an ACL or a concussion. So that's the first thing I like. The second thing with regards to St. Pete's Calisthenics is that you guys, for what I call the recreational athlete, you have a progression. You have a system of evaluation, so you can pull those that are not ready to do some of the more play-oriented class structured programs you have, and you have a nice progression to get them ready to play. So that would be the second thing. And I think, you hit it right on the head. Watching my kid grow up, especially in New York, it was amazing how many parents didn't play with their kids in the playground. And I wasn't sure if they couldn't or they didn't want to. I would imagine that they really wanted to, and they just didn't know how to move around. They didn't know how to move around in space, or they forgot how to move around in space, or it was too threatening to them. but you guys address that in a very community-oriented fashion, which is good. Nobody wants to go to the playground by themselves. They want to go have fun with someone else. Second point, you address the fun thing. It has to be fun. So your classes are fun, which makes them want to come back. And if they come back, they'll get results, you know.
That's right. Fun first, fitness second.
That's it.
If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to show up. And that was another huge thing I realized teaching people strength training for 10 years is they liked the session with me, but after they felt they were ready to kind of try to take the reins on their own, they're like, lifting weights is not enjoyable. I go to the gym by myself. No one looks at me. They don't talk to anyone around. You're not there to make it kind of fun. So they don't really find it easy to stick with the program because they realize the fun part was me, the trainer. And now that I'm not there, that activity is not as enjoyable for them. So they...
It's funny, I'm gonna sound old, but the weight room didn't used to be that way. When you used to go to gyms, I mean, even in a busy, sort of a super busy city like New York, where we had the reputation of, you know, being indifferent and being a little bit, you know, rude, the gym environment, when you went into a gym like in the late 80s and 90s, you know, people that didn't know you right away, if you needed a spot or you needed to learn how to use a piece of equipment, you didn't have to schedule a session with a trainer. It didn't really even exist. It was, you know, an actual community, and you saw the people come back at the same time and start to get results. And then they would pass it on and pass it forward and help somebody else. But that was sort of the environment. And, you know, people would put their weights back and people would clean their equipment and, you know, and ask if someone was using something. It was a different environment, but, you know, the class support that you guys provide here is big. That's huge. That's huge for people.
What do you think changed as far as the way the gym atmosphere used to be versus kind of how it's gotten to this, you know, I just keep my headphones in and I just focus on what I'm doing?
Yeah, it got a little bit more fast foodish, you know?
Yeah.
It got a little bit more McDonald's-like, you know?
Just out of there, do my thing, and that's it.
And, you know, the ownership was concerned with creating profit margins everywhere. So, you know, it was less about creating members. I remember, like, reading stuff like the attrition rate for most members was like 70%. And I don't know if it's gotten better, but you lose 7 out of 10 people, like, in the first few months. That's what it used to be. And so, you know, that's acceptable to you. You know, it's not baseball.
Right.
You know, it's should be able to keep most of your clients if you're doing something right. Yeah, so I think it's gotten better. I think people realize that. Ownership realizes that. You know, there's more places like St. Pete's Calisthenics, but the difference here is, like I said, that you guys understand that it's not just a class structure where guys come in and, you know, you get thrown into classes. You know, you have to be able to meet the standards to get into the class structure and play. And that when you do, you're going to be in a really fun environment and you're going to get results.
Makes it more worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. Well, give us a little bit more of your background, I guess, and how you came into being more of a rehabilitative corrective exercise sort of trainer versus just a standard strength and conditioning style coach.
Yep. So my background is in engineering,
right.
But I went back to school for physiology, and the first part of my career was mostly strength and conditioning, first on the corporate side, and then on the pro sports side, I started on the Western Hockey League, and I would just write their programs for a specific team and put them through, in groups, put them through their program. And I would go out there once a month, and I did that for a few years. From there, I started getting a good reputation in hockey and started getting some pros to come work with me in the off season. And after doing that for a few off seasons, I quickly realized that 95% of them, I wasn't able to execute the program that I had in mind because they were injured, you know, or they were recovering from an injury, or they just weren't balanced, like we said before. So with that in mind, I thought about going to PT school, but instead I took a non-accredited, it was more like a 5-year program, and out of an osteopathic school, Montreal and in Marseille with Dr. Guy Voyer. And I've used a lot of his principles in soma therapy and in soma training, which is all osteopathic methods that he developed, like LDOA, like myofascial stretching, certain proprioceptive postures, certain pumping techniques that we can use acutely. I've used all of that in the last 10 years. And it's a combination of, acute stuff with some athletes, and some athletes it's the same as you return to play. They're not quite ready to get back to field or to the court, but they're kind of through with their conventional PT, and there's a big gap there that you want to bridge, and that's kind of what I've come in. And I've come across a lot of concussion stuff in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, because I've just been asking more questions. So it's really tying in, really understanding the globality, understanding how the vestibular system works and how that works in conjunction with the athlete's, nervous system and with the athlete mechanically. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
I love it. That's a lot of similar things I was realizing as I was getting into, just training. I was more general population, and even more so a lot of the elderly population, because I started training down here in Florida, and it was, oh, you're good with the people who are avoiding surgeries or just got out of surgery, and a lot of the older population here in St. Pete is in that camp. So I realized how dysfunctional these people were, and some of them were only in their early 50s, some of them were in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I just kind of saw what led them to get to this point of non-functionality, and I was backtracking with each client and like, oh, well, you haven't jumped in years, like decades, like multiple decades. Like, no wonder your meniscuses don't exist. You haven't had to use your shock absorbers, so they're not going to be there anymore over time. And you've probably been walking very weird for those same number of decades, so you've probably just been wearing through that same spot in your knee without any intentional stimulus to force your body to keep that tissue spry. And I was like, all right, well, these people didn't have anything that they found fun over those years to make them do any of those things. And I just slowly realized all these little areas that we, as a society that no longer has to work hard, laborious jobs, we have to sort of now intentionally go find types of movement and activities that are going to get your body moving in a way that was formerly demanded upon us. But now it's like, okay, well, how do I find a mode of exercise that serves my body for decades and is not going to wear through my knees or wear through my shoulders in a way that keeps me in that same dysfunctional older age camp. But it really came down to starting to tackle these vestibular issues, the imbalances from the slings where this side feels really easy, but if I have this person do it on that side, they can't even hold it for a second. So those were the reasons I was coming to as far as why this person hurt their back so much. So until we addressed that, this person wasn't ever going to be able to do stuff without recurring issues in that area.
It's fun. What of the play adult classes that are offered here at St. Pete Calisthenics, which is the more popular class, and why do you think?
I definitely am going to say it's our balance class. Oddly enough, we have seen so many people come back through that class because I think of just how enjoyable it is. Like I'll be up on the platform with my one-on-one clients, and we'll be watching the balance class happen in the center of the room, and they're all like, are they exercising? That looks like they're just having a blast and
Interesting.
playing on balance beams, and they're just joking around playing games the whole time. But they're doing it all on a single leg for most of that hour. So they're getting a lot of unilateral integration with the movement, and it is surprisingly challenging, but it's one of our more, call it lowish intensity classes, but it has the highest level of fun.
Interesting.
And that has been taken off quite well. So happy to see that. That's part of the Foot Collective element that I wanted to bring in, which is finding ways to help people train properly from the ground up. Because no matter what issue people started to come to me for, whether it was the shoulders, the hips, the knees, the lower back, whatever, I had to help everybody with their feet. So until people start addressing their foot functionality, I can do a lot of stuff up the chain, but your foot and ankle still aren't behaving right, so nothing up the chain is still really doing what I need it to, even though it might look like it's a little bit better. Until I address the foot, it's not really going to solve itself.
I'm going to introduce you to a lady. That's another text that you'll send me. And I know that we're recording, but that's okay. Her name is Ilaria Cavagna. She's from Milan, and she lives in New York, but she has a company and a protocol called Fitness, and it's exactly what you're talking about. And she goes through all of the anatomy, all the biomechanics, all the proprioception, the links, all the way up the chain. And that's something you hit it. So many adults have issues with their feet, whether it be a sprained ankle when they were in high school, or bunions or whatever it is, and they have trouble with their feet and they don't realize, what you said, the importance of how you load that and how that, manifests itself up the chain when you move.
Yeah, it's huge. That was my deep dive into neurokinetic therapy. Kind of helped me
Oh, you
realize
love Ilaria. You guys will,
all of that.
You guys will hit it off because
teaches you the whole stable joint, mobile joint, stable joint, mobile joint. And if something is a little out of line, then the next joint has to become mobile when it's supposed to be a stable joint, and then the whole chain is just like.
Oh yeah, it's funny. The pitchers that I'm working with now in baseball, I'm working with 3 guys, and what I'm looking into myself, taking a deeper dive, is into more proprioception of the foot, like not just general, but very specific. I have to give them specific proprioception for this part of the foot and for this part of the foot and this part of the ankle because of how they load it. So
another thing that we've seen with the foot a lot is the sensitivity that most people have. Their feet are so sensitive because they walk around in marshmallows all day long. They don't ever spend time on the floor, and that leads to your foot just being in a point where any amount of pressure is just so intense that you now rely on those really soft shoes. And that's really where the Foot Collective was kind of embracing the minimalist shoe cycle and encouraging that being able to feel the ground through your shoe has a lot of good proprioceptive benefits. And that's something that as the shoes get really, really, really big, they start to find that you're getting less and less ability to grip the ground, and now those arch muscles have atrophied a little more, and then it leads to those challenges that just, as we were saying, up the chain, become a little more and more tough to get back once they're gone.
There's something to that. Well, we had an office in the Dominican Republic in like 2011 to 2014 or 15, and we worked with a lot of the young prospects in baseball. And a lot of those young kids would come to the academy 12, 13, 14, sometimes as old as 15. And a good percentage of them never wore shoes.
Yeah, wow.
But the running mechanics were crazy.
I know
they were very, very good.
There's a football player, I forget what team he's on, but he's known for being barefoot all the time. I think I saw something go viral about him talk about the benefits of bare feet. So I know there's definitely a tide moving in the direction that's understanding that it is good to have at least some periods throughout the day where you allow your foot to have that full contact.
There was something to that for sure. We didn't, obviously they didn't train barefoot, but there was definitely something to their posture was much better. And their running mechanics were much better than a lot of kids their age that have been raised in shoes here in North America.
We do find a lot of folks coming in are really excited that they're in a place that's very embracing of the barefoot stuff, because like you're saying, the amount of functionality that the body gets when your feet are able to do the amount of function that they're supposed to, it creates much more stability and control throughout the entire system. So being in a place where this can be your hour a day where you do your barefoot stuff. You get to do some movement training on top of it, which just helps reintegrate those movement patterns a little bit even more so. So you can tolerate whatever work shoes you have to
that information to the brain is critical. It really is.
And I know working with vestibular heavy athletes like the figure skaters and the ice hockey players and anyone who's doing flips upside down and all of that stuff is also where the Biooptimization Institute here, I think, has a pretty cool crossover with your potential clientele. Is a lot of their protocol is aimed at helping the body better receive those training protocols that we're imposing on them. So getting your tissues more pliable with the oxygenation and more grounded with the PEMF, and then getting onto the micro impact plates. So now your lymphatic system and connective tissues are all prepared before you get on this cool thing behind me, which is the vestibular spin plate, which really allows you to run through some eye protocols and some head tilt protocols and really encourage your brain to be okay with this added stimulus of spinning around or potentially upside down. He'll have you forward fold while you're spinning around, so it's it's forcing your brain to understand what it needs to hang on to so you don't start feeling dizzy and this and that. You can actually sit there and stay composed while you're training for that triple backflip or whatever it could be if you're like a swimmer or diver situation, or the figure skater learning that 720 or any of those things where it's like pushing your boundaries another level. But if your brain isn't able to stay aware enough, then you're going to fall, hit the ice. Now you got concussion issues, which I know is another area that you help a lot of those athletes with, is dealing with the concussion, but getting back to being able to stay composed while they're spinning again and not have those other TBI remnants.
Yeah. No, we're taking a different highway to the same location. You know, with a lot of the tools that you're using here, biooptimization, the location is still the same. We want to optimize the athlete or your corporate client's ability to manage themselves in space, especially when they're moving fast, whether it be hitting a golf ball or a tennis ball or playing pickleball. You know, what information are they getting? And I'm 100% on board with that. You know, I'm a big fan of using tumbling and gymnastics, you know, in the athlete's training program, provided that they can do it and it's with a really smart progression. Anything that helps them to be more athletic in 360 degrees, you know, better information from the foot, from the joints, from the spine, from the ocular system, all better information for them. Yeah, no, I'm on board, and for here, it's like the progression that you've built in to the biooptimization is wonderful for the person that wants to come in and like help to optimize, provided they're doing everything else right with you guys. They want to optimize their game. They want to optimize, you know, their golf game or their pickleball game, or just be able to, you know, what's beautiful about this is that the more efficient you get, which is what we're talking about, the less energy that you expend, the more energy you're going to have throughout the day.
And you mentioned it a little bit with the gymnastics stuff. I don't know if you got wind of the Chris Master John podcast on Joe Rogan recently, but he touted about the benefits of gymnastic style training, and I think pole vaulting was the other
Interesting.
Sport that
I have to go back and listen to that.
Highest boost in longevity as far as what was allowed compared to the average span of a person. There was 8 years longer lived for the gymnastics professional athlete or the pole vaulters, and I think they were tying it back to the fact that this person is flipping, spinning, and doing things that require the vestibular system to stay attentive, so they maintain proper coordination and reaction times. And then they're also getting the circulation benefits of being upside down and rolling around. All the fluids in your head, all the blood vessels, all have to be good at exchanging fluids so that you don't have any, you know, issues of passing out or blood pressure challenges or any of those symptoms that oftentimes people get who never go upside down. The second they get upside down, that pressure in their head is just so intense they can't handle it, so now they just never get upside down.
Yeah.
But there's so much benefit to doing that, and that's where, you know, if you have a handstand goal, but you can't handle being upside down, there's a lot we got to start working on to just build up some tolerance and allow your body to accept that new position of being inverted.
Exactly.
Before we can even think about a handstand.
More importantly, the benefits of just teaching them to get into that position. For the average adult that can't get in that position, just learning how to do the handstand against the wall is incorporating all these systems you're talking about, and the benefits when you put your foot on the ground and walk normally are immense, just from learning that one movement. You know, I have a lot of the guys I work with especially shoulder rehab or concussions as well, we have them do rock climbing, like in the later phases.
Yep.
And people are like, well, wow, why rock climbing? Well, because you're using your pelvic girdle and your scapular girdle together like you do in sport, and you're doing that while complex problem solving. So you have to use your eyes, your inner ear, everything. All this information is going in, and it's also fun. So now you're accomplishing that, and I can get more out of that than I can out of doing a lot of other static neural training.
Yeah, I know that eyes on BioOp to get one of the neuro boards to play around with, so that after you've gone through the protocol, now he's going to have you do some problem solving because you've just primed the body, you've oxygenated the brain, you've done the spinning, so your body is ready for all this new challenge, and you're going to start firing that brain by doing these cognitive hit
yeah.
the lights or play whatever game
Yeah.
that he decides for you that day. But that adds that neural component that you're exactly describing, which is now we're problem solving with a primed position in the body, and now it will be much better receptive in the long run to keep these systems fired up.
My son is 8 and he's wrestling and he has practice tonight. So before we leave for practice, he'll do one Eldoa posture for his thoracic spine because he's been on the computer, working at school, and not sitting the best way probably. And then he'll do one activation exercise, again, more postural. And then he's going to do his eye exercises. There's a few convergence exercises that he does just for the muscles of the eyes.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And then after he does that, then he's going to do like some forward roll stuff or some reflex sticks, that kind of stuff, and really, like you said, prime it, with the same thought processes. Then we'll get in the car and go to practice, and he'll do his warm-up with the team.
He's going to have a much more productive practice. His body's much more receptive to what he's about to do because you've kind of counterbalanced a lot of what the school day does to the body.
Right.
And something I noticed already was just talking with clients and some of the age group kids that they have. By like 12 and 13, a lot of the kids are already showing like these, really bad posture signs of just being in desks all day and forward, neck down at the phone. So like being able to start integrating that with an 8-year-old, and I don't know exactly how long you've been doing that with him for, but getting kids in that elementary school age already understanding of how to help rebalance the body so that they don't have to dig out of the depths of the hole that a lot of folks now are having to do because they've gone decades without thinking about any of this and just kind of existing, not understanding the length of time that actually there is in 100 years, which if the average lifespan is starting to trickle up and we're all going to be living roughly 100 years or more going forwards, you want to make that as high of a quality of life as possible, and it just is much better served if you can start as early as possible and understand that you only get one of these bodies. It is amazing what medical science can do to keep your body alive, but you don't want to be in the situation where you have to be kept alive by medical science. Ailment ends up being your thing. The bigger fear is chronic illness than it is death, is something I heard someone say recently, and they're like, talk to the people who have just been chronically ill for 20 years and ask them if it's worth it, or if they just sometimes wish that, car accident might have been a little better than this 20 years of dialysis I've had to be, constantly doing, or whatever situation.
My buddy Dr. G is a functional medical doctor, and he does all integrative stuff. So he's heavy on the blood work and nutrition and all the important stuff that, society's getting a little bit better educated on. But he describes it always as like, you have to think of longevity and aging as you're just bringing the plane in for a nice smooth landing. You don't want to be bringing the plane in for a rough landing. And that's what you're talking about. So the more you do now to keep strong, to do the basic stuff, to move, to play, to know where you are in space, because that's a very important one. You hit it right on the head with technology, not just with kids, but with adults as well, because it doesn't take too long. The spine has devolved equally correlated to how we've evolved in technology. Because we're sitting more and we're staring down at screens or down at phones more. So, that's what's happening to your eyes. That's what's happening, so much the vision, but the muscles in your eyes. That's what's happening to your spine, like you said. There's an actual orthopedic condition called tech neck now. Yeah.
You're getting like an extra spinal process or something.
Exactly.
That's starting to kind of grow in there. Yeah.
Between C7 and T1, they're getting like a ledge almost, and that's not good.
That's the body evolving and adapting to that new piece already.
That's exactly right. So, you're right. Everything that you guys want to do here at St. Pete Calisthenics is kind of where you want to be. You want to be in a position where you're moving better in space, where you can play and you can do anything that you want to. So that means having the strength, endurance, mobility, capacity to be able to do those things, because that's like real life. Like you need to be able to move that way.
That's right. And life tends to throw curveballs at you, and the classic one is stepping off a curb that you didn't see, and if you don't have any sort of reflex action left, you haven't been training any type 2 muscle fibers to keep that ability to save yourself. The
Globally.
balance class
Yeah.
is a very nice low intensity example of a way to still train your type 2 muscle fibers, but in a very not that explosive way. You know, your body has to catch those little glitches, and that's still enough to fire those reactive mechanisms so that you don't have to worry if you did trip off a curb, you might still be able to save yourself without,
you know how to fall
down.
because you fall in class
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
And so
That
you're
too.
not going to break your hip, you're not going to smash your head because you know how to fall.
You're not going to extend your arm out and break your wrist. You're
That's
going to know
right.
that you can just kind of tuck and roll into
Right.
it.
You're not going to tear your labrum in your shoulder like a lot of people do just traveling, reaching in the overhead compartment, you know, because those type of movements are not what you do in the gym. But they require you to use your body in space different. And that goes back to, hey, you got to learn how to play again. You got to learn how to move.
Yep.
You got to learn how to move.
And it shouldn't stop. I think that's another thing that as we start seeing the older population continue to grow, they're starting to realize that they have to keep moving throughout those years. It shouldn't really slow down. If anything, it should start to pick up a little bit because as you age, it does, unfortunately, the body atrophies quicker.
Sure.
So that 10-day rest that you took to go to Europe when you were 40, when you do that at 70, your body's going to be probably a good bit farther atrophied than it was when you were in your younger years. So you maybe need to work out while you travel now, whereas maybe you could take the whole 10 days off when you were 30-something and it wasn't a really big deal, but 10 days off when you're 70s, you're fighting against a bigger initial pushing that boulder off the mountain again because you've detrained a little quicker. Because I spent a lot of time training the older population, like 60 and up, I saw that a lot. So I had to basically make a rule. I was like, you guys don't take more than 7 days off. Like if you travel for 10 days, that means you need to work out at least once.
No doubt. There's
Like,
something
at
to
least
that.
once.
Detraining your nervous system. The other thing I like about you guys is that you focus on the basics. A lot of places don't anymore. A lot of our information, clients and members are getting that information online, or they have to reach, the basics. Sleep, nutrition, hydration. If you don't solve those big three right there, then it doesn't matter what you're doing. So you need to solve those three first, and you'll see you'll get much better results. Everything will start recovering better. You'll start improving. You'll start getting more results. But that's one thing you guys focus on here that I like, which is it's including the recovery. You have the sauna and the cold tub, and you have some recovery classes, but that stuff is super important because those are skills that your membership has to teach themselves that are really, really important for their wellness. You guys can provide all the other information, but they have to continue to focus on those basics.
It's all about starting with the right foundation first, and we, as much as we love, all the really cool modalities, involved with Biooptimization Institute, those don't have the best effect if you're not eating well and you're not sleeping well and you're not already doing those foundational things. This stuff is only going to benefit 0.5% or a percentage compared to that nutrition change, which could have been 30% of your issue. So we want to try and encourage everyone to tackle the biggest chunk first, and that's almost always sleep, nutrition, stress, those big couple key components before we start worrying about adding these extra things in the mix. Now, there's always time and a place and scenarios where we may add it in still because it's helping the nervous system by having these modalities in addition to teaching you how to meditate. But if all you're doing is the protocol, then it's definitely not going to have as near of a good of an effect or as quick of an effect.
No doubt. The tools are wonderful provided that they focus on the basics, but that's what you guys do.
Right.
And you have a real good understanding of it.
Really encouraging everyone to be their own best health advocate. We're here to help navigate you, and that's partly why I've reached out to so many other wellness practitioners, different massage therapists, different chiropractors, different PTs, finding the couple core facilitators in our area so that I can help people navigate that cloudy system that really hasn't made it easy for people to know where do I need to go for this particular issue that I'm feeling, because my primary care doctor doesn't really know where to send me. They're just guessing which specialist I should try next and kind of following whatever the insurance model is telling them to versus actually thinking about my condition and how can I most quickly help this person versus what hoops do I have to stay through before I can get them where they need to go.
That's the beauty of the return to play model here is your evaluation. You guys are able to catch those red flags in particular prospective members and be able to help them initially, right away, because you know that you need to solve these issues first. So you're able to funnel them to the right practitioner and then, get them back. When they come back, they're at a point when then they can participate, but that's important because the evaluation process is where everything gets done, and it's a very good setup the way you guys have it because, again, you're able to kind of notice those red flags way ahead of time.
And it only makes the sessions that we're going to end up having with you that much more effective if I realize right away your SI joint's out of whack. I think we need to have you see a chiropractor before we do our next session because your movement's not going to feel right until that's reset. So that's a good referral out for that. Or if I see that, hey, this tissue is irritating you too much with this very basic maneuver, I think you do need to go finish that couple more sessions with your physical therapist. I don't think you're fully ready for what we're doing. We can make sure we communicate with that physical therapist and get on the same page, and then we take you back once you've finished.
Exactly.
And it's a much smoother process for everyone.
Yeah. Get you ready to play and keep you playing healthy. That's the goal.
And throughout the return to play process, through your sessions, you'll also get educated on the different tools that are available, like massage guns and voodoo floss and some of these other ways that will allow you to still get your training in, even if you feel a little bit of something talking to you that morning. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get your movement in that day. It's just understanding what modalities are available to me and how could I use them based on what I'm feeling. And that's another big educational component of return to play is how do you keep yourself able to stay playing while you're juggling life, kids having to go here and there, eating here and there, getting enough food in. Like, it's a lot to juggle these days, and sometimes we become the last priority. And understanding how you can be most efficient with the 1 hour that you may have to spend on yourself, sometimes less. I get that objection all the time. I don't have an hour every day that I can work on my movement or work on this or that. So I actually am encouraging a lot of people to microdose their mobility or microdose your movement. Maybe you just do 5 minutes of push-ups in the morning, you do a 30-minute workout at lunch break, and then you do a couple squats in the evening time until you can't. You just do one set to failure. Anything like that is still better than nothing, and your body will very much appreciate it because it's reminded why it needs to stay limber and ready for everything versus being able to just tighten up because you sat still for 8 hours. Those little pieces throughout the day will help break up that tension that most of us are feeling, and it doesn't have to be a full hour every day. I think the minimum standard now, according to most of the things, is like half an hour, 7 days a week. So it's about 3.5 hours by the end of the week that you should aim for as a minimum. X amount of that should be vigorous intensity. So
there's a crane operator, I forget where but he posts on Instagram, and he's working like different job sites, and these job sites, some of them, it's freezing cold. I think he's actually in British Columbia, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yeah. And he posts like at his lunch break or his coffee break, he has like a right by the rig, like a 40-pound kettlebell, and he does like a 15-minute routine and stays in great shape, but he does it every day. Every day, to your point, he just does that one routine, which is all he needs.
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough. And what also is important for people to realize is here at St. Pete's Calisthenics, you're prescribing the exercise to them. So it's not like they're coming and, oh yeah, I just want to take these classes. And I'll, like you said, you can't take classes 7 days a week. This is what your prescription is, and this is what you can do at home. Or this is how you can complement that with your pickleball or your golf or your tennis or your squash, whatever it is. This is how you're going to complement that. The prescription part is important because otherwise that's where you run into trouble. You're either not doing enough and you're not getting results, or their volume is too high and they get hurt.
And we really emphasize that. It's one of the first conversations we have after we get through most of the assessment. That's kind of, if there's enough time left, we go over that first piece of our educational element, which is teaching you about that capacity. Understanding, based on what we're talking about, you have a very small room for extra movement without breaching your capacity. That's why you keep getting injured. So we help you realize, how do I reduce the boxes that are creating my inability to, get that movement in without breaching capacity. But then also, how can I safely make sure I'm challenging myself enough, but still able to recover in a way that's improving my capacity over time, not keeping me in this cycle of injury after injury after injury. And in our assessment, we help you kind of determine if you've already come to a couple classes, you can kind of give us some feedback on how they felt, but we're going to help you decide which classes to start with.
Exactly.
Based on what we're seeing, you probably need the mobility more than anything, so I might recommend the animal flow or a yoga class first. Or if I'm like noticing your shoulder is so out of whack because you have no rotational strength, then I might recommend that you do the calisthenics class, where you're going to really just emphasize a lot of that rotation on that very first class, which will probably help rebalance that tension in your traps right after the first class. So we can help tailor what you do first based on what's going to serve you the most. And we can let you know, I would skip, every other day, do a higher intensity class, but in between those days, pick one of our lower intensity classes. Maybe you do a balance class or a yoga class on those active recovery days. You save the calisthenics classes and the conditioning classes for your more high intensity days.
It's a huge service. Like I said, most, even on a pro level, the guys that are training in the off season, it's hard for them to manage all the components of their training with the throwing and the running and when to do the recovery and when to plug it in. So the fact that you help the members with that's really, really important.
It's a huge element of what I did for my clients as a trainer, was basically a health concierge person. I was able to help be like, I think this is more the direction I would encourage you to go. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it'll be a lot more efficient for what you need. And it's what I really love about animal flow, is it's such an efficient practice for those guys in the pro world who they're traveling all the time. They have very limited extra time to work on some of this. They need it to be as efficient as possible. So the animal flow works on shoulder stability, so that pitcher can keep their shoulder in nice, healthy place. All the sling activation required in it is going to be very helpful for someone in baseball regardless, because they're throwing with one arm. Most of the time they never throw with the opposite side. I don't know how often you see them bat the other direction too often, but
Very
I think
few players
it could be way more done to help encourage that balance of the sport. So those are
I love the
elements.
animal movements and a lot of the animal flow. We use that a lot for warm up, sometimes for rehab depending on what they're doing, sometimes as part of their training. We use it. I use it with music, with rhythm, so that they're working that system. We'll have them spot targets, so they're working the ocular system as well while they're doing it. So, I mean, the actual practice is sort of misunderstood because it has a huge amount of value. You can, like you said, you can rebalance somebody really quick just using a few animal movements.
And it's a great assessment tool. I find a lot of people can do one move on one side but not the other one. And I'm like, well, that tells you every move that you can do on one side, but it's a much more different feeling on the other side. That's a position that you need to work on bridging the gap, because that is a exploitation of your imbalance.
No doubt.
Easy to see, easy to strengthen, because it's usually just sitting in that position that's going to build up the strength. So it's a great assessment tool, but it's also a great strength building tool for those challenging positions, which, the first thing I point out on the first day in class with everyone is just doing the first under switch. You're scapular depressing and controlling into a horizontal push. And then once you start adding the bear position, we go overhead. So now you're getting such a stable shoulder in all planes of motion. So no matter what life demanded of you, you've got a very well-rounded and confident body.
That progression is a key. Again,
It's awesome to see it all kind of here moving in action now finally. We're about to officially set a grand opening date, hopefully sometime for early 2026.
Nice.
We've been in a soft open phase for the last 6 or 7 months, and we're excited to get these last couple of moving parts nailed down and officially have that grand opening announcement.
Do some evals. Do some Return2Play evals.
Yep.
Teach some Eldoa.
Yep, that would be great. I want to have a couple of different workshops planned out through the weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking with you about potentially hosting 1 or 2 of those classes for us and show us some of your expertise. Do you have any last couple of items that you might want anyone to know about what you do or how you can help them if they were to come through our doors?
I mean, if I had one tool that I would pass on to the general public, it would be to learn as much about Eldoa as possible. It's an acronym, ELDOA. It was developed by a mentor and a teacher of mine, Dr. Guy Voyer, in the late 70s. And it's probably the single best tool that I have in my toolbox with my athletes with regards to posture and spine health and mobility.
ELDOA.
Yeah.
I need to do a little more deep diving into it myself.
I've
I've been aware of it a little bit more since you reminded me of it, but
we're going to put you guys through it.
that's one of the classes you want to do.
Just a 45-minute ELDOA class, and then just kind of whiteboard what we're doing, why we're doing it, because all your guys will get it right away, and it's pretty amazing. It really is. This is fun, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you came on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll have you on again. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Yeah.
We will see you on the next Return to Play podcast episode.
Come to St. Pete, Calisthenics.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks.